Hey guys, welcome back to my channel. So thank you for joining me. Just a huge thank you to all of you who have been watching for the past month. Crazy that it's coming up to 2 years since I started. Channel isn't where I wanted it to be. Channel, I would hope one day will be where I want it to be. Thing you can help me with is if you just give this video a like, give it a share, comment, leave a comment down below. I always read your comments, always get back to you guys. Just help me push it out there. I'll never ask you guys for money. It's always going to be a free channel, but I would like it to be a bit more successful, and I can't do that without you guys. So just a like and a share and subscribe. If you haven't subscribed yet, please subscribe. And that is everything. So we're just going to get into the story. So before we're going to get into that, just a little backstory of what I'm going to be talking about today. We're going to be talking about the illegal, well now illegal, it's sort of going backwards and forwards. But we're going to be talking about the chimpanzee trade in America. And this has resulted in numerous people being affected by this. Mainly two people, St. John Davis and Charlie Nash. You probably may not have heard those names or might not recognise those names, but I think once I get into the stories, you might recognise the stories. So, to start off, we're going to be talking about Charlie Nash and what happened to her, and also the backstory of where the chimpanzees come from. So, thank you guys for listening, thank you for watching, and I really hope that one day you guys can help me get this channel off the ground.
Stand for 911, where's your emergency?
This is Sandy. 231 Road, Rock Crimin Road.
What's the
Send
problem?
the police. Send the police.
What's the problem there?
The chimp killed my friend.
What's the problem with your friend?
Oh, please.
What's the problem with your friend? I need to know.
Send the police up with a gun. With a gun. Hurry
Who
up.
has a gun?
Please hurry up. He's killing my girlfriend.
What is the problem?
He's killing my friend.
Who's killing your friend?
My chimpanzee.
Oh, your chimpanzee is killing your friend.
He ripped her apart. Hurry up.
With a gun.
Hurry up, please.
There's someone on the way.
With guns, please. You shoot him.
What is the monkey doing? Tell me what the monkey's...
He ripped her face off.
He's ripped her face off?
He's trying to attack me. Please,
Okay,
hurry.
I need you to calm down a little bit. They're on the way. Can you put yourself away? I don't want the monkey attacking you.
Please, hurry up. Listen to me.
They're on the way, man.
Guns. They gotta shoot him, please. Please, hurry.
You're there with your friend. I need you to help your friend. Can you go help your
I
friend?
can't. He's trying to attack me now.
Is he still there with your friend?
Yes.
Okay, so then back off. Then don't get any closer, okay? They're already on the way.
Please.
If the monkey moves away from your friend, let me know, okay? So we can try to help your friend.
No, I can't. She's dead. She's dead.
Why are you saying that she's dead?
She's dead. He ripped her apart.
He ripped what apart? Her face?
Everything.
He ripped her apart?
I think I'm gonna sleep. I think I'm gonna pass out.
No, just breathe, okay? I'm gonna stay with you on the phone until they get there.
Listen to me. Please hurry. Please hurry. Oh my God. They gotta have their guns out. They gotta have their guns out. Listen to me. Oh my God.
Is this your monkey or whose monkey is it? It's your monkey.
No, it's mine.
How do you know how big is he? How many pounds?
200 pounds.
400?
200.
200 pounds?
Listen to me, please. Where are they?
And he's a chimp, correct?
Yes. Where are they?
They're going your way. They're going as fast as they can your way, okay?
Please go faster. Please, Dirk. Please.
Is the monkey still by your friend, or can you get close to your friend?
He's eating her. Please, God, oh please.
Okay, I need you to calm down for me. I know it's hard, okay? I know it's hard. But they're going as fast as they can your way, okay?
Oh my God, please. They tell them they gotta shoot him because I tried stabbing him and he's not, and it made him worse.
Okay, Sandra.
Have them shoot him.
They will. Sandra, I already have the fire department close by, okay? So as soon as the police gets there, the fire department's going to move in, okay? The fire department can't move in yet, but as soon as the police officers show up,
Please tell them. Shoot him because he's going to try to attack me now.
just breathe, Sandra.
Shoot him! Shoot him!
Sandra, stay in your car.
Shoot him!
Sandra, I need you to stay in your car.
Shoot him, please! I tried stabbing him, and he's hurt now too. So he's gonna attack anybody. I can't get out of this car.
Lock your doors on your car and stay there with me.
It don't matter. It don't matter. It don't matter. He will rip the doors wide
Sandra,
open.
just do what I'm telling you to. Stay in the car. The police officers will handle it.
Please tell him to shoot him. Please tell him. Please tell him to kill him, please.
They did, Sandra. They're shooting at him already, okay?
But he's not dead.
I know they will continue until he's dead, okay? I just need you to stay on the phone with me and breathe.
He's not dead. He's not dead. Oh, God. Oh, God.
Okay, so that little clip that you heard there, that was what the police officers in Connecticut walked into on February the 16th, 2009. What they saw, what they witnessed, it really changed their lives. A lot of them had to go for counselling afterwards because of what happened. And mainly because the chimpanzee in question, Travis, he was like a mini local celebrity. Like people would stop and have pictures of him. Even the police would stop and have pictures with him, and everyone knew him. And I think this is just kind of like the dangers of owning a dangerous animal like this. This is not it. Obviously, chimps, yes, they are our closest living relatives. They're 99% human. But it's that 1% that differentiates them from us. And no matter how many times you think that these animals are trained, they're not. And it just takes one little thing to spark them off, and other people's lives get affected. Before I start talking about what happened on February the 16th, 2009, before I start talking about what happened to Charles and Ash, I'm going to go into a little bit of backstory of where Travis come from. And that was all down to the actions of one woman, and her name was Connie Casey. So back in the 70s, back in the 60s and 70s, and I believe this is like worldwide, I don't think it was just a US thing, but there was a demand to own exotic animals. My mum told me herself that when she was a little girl, there was a man that lived on her street that actually owned a lion cub. And nowadays you actually have to, at least in the UK, I'm not sure about other countries in the world. I know in the US they have implemented this, but you have to in the UK you have to have a license to own an exotic animal. And you literally just go onto the government website, you look up the license, you pay a fee, you have to prove that obviously you have the facilities, you have the proper enclosure, you have the space for the animal. I'm just going to post little pictures here. And someone will come around and you pay the fee, they give you the license, and Bob Struggle, you've got the animal. In the UK, there are a few people, I'm in Essex, and there's a man that lives not far from where I live, who has a very large collection of venomous snakes, like cobras, rattlesnakes, things like that. There's another man in Essex somewhere that owns an ostrich. But there's also people that own lions, pumas, things like that. So it's not that rare in the UK, to be honest. So, like I said, in the 60s and 70s, there was like huge demand for exotic animals. And this led Missouri-born Connie Casey to think about becoming a chimpanzee owner. Now, Connie lived on a very large estate in Missouri, around 15 acres. She already had some experience with working with animals. She operated a pet shop from her 15-acre estate. And in 1972, she buys a male chimp called Coco. And he had been poached from his home in Tanzania. And in 1975, she buys a female named Bridget, and then another female called Susie, who are both pregnant at that time. Now, what her main objective was when it came to the babies is the baby would be born, and literally the day later or up to 3 days later, the mother to Bridget or Susie, they would be tranquilised, the baby removed. Susie and Bridget wake up and their baby's gone missing, and the little baby chimp would be sold on to someone for up to $50,000. And the babies of the chimps, you know, they would be trained to sort of act like models. So if you think about the hallmark chimpanzee, so obviously the chimpanzee you see on greeting cards, looks like he's smiling. Commonly that was a chimpanzee she owned called Connor. And it looks like he's smiling in the photos, but what it actually is with chimpanzees, that smile is actually a fear posture. Connor was on sets for long days, and he's constantly being made to make this facial expression. And one particular day, he just sort of flips out, and he gets severely punished for that. The chimpanzees were trained to appear in music videos. They were trained to appear in movies. Like I said, she would charge up to $50,000 for the baby. So Travis, he was actually born to Susie and Coco in October 1995. So 3 days later, he's removed from Susie. And he's bought by Sandra and her husband, Jerome Herald. And they pay up to $50,000 for him. They name him Travis after Sandra's favourite singer. This was a country and western singer called Travis Tritt. Now, there was a few incidents after this that we're going to go into before we get into what happened with Charlie Nash. And this was involving, so back in 2001, to Susie and 3 other chimps, they escape from Connie's prison. So at this point, Connie was with her second husband, a man called Mike Casey. He worked with her and trained the chimps. They set up another business called Chimp Party. And what it was is the phrase like a chimp's tea party. And that's what it was. They would take chimpanzees to attend children's birthday parties. And because it was just, you know, the infinite, they'd take them to schools, something like that. So Susie and the 3 other chimps, they escape from Connie and Mike's prison. They end up going over to their next door neighbours. The next door neighbour doesn't want to entertain them. Obviously, people are aware there are chimpanzees in the neighbourhood. So they go over to the next property. And this is where 17-year-old boy Jason Coates, he's just returned back from his shift at Dairy Queen, and he's with 3 other friends. And also at home was his dog. Now, they were aware of the chimpanzees. Like the chimps would literally just open the cages willy-nilly, run over to houses, open the doors. They would drag children out, but only to play with them. None of them has shown any aggression up until this point. And, you know, over the years, there have been numerous reports about inadequate care in regards to Connie. So, when the chimps get to Jason's house, they are very agitated. They begin rocking the car backwards and forwards. They're screaming. Obviously, everyone knows what chimpanzees sounds like when they're screaming. Obviously, the kids are scared. The four teenagers, are all shit scared. And they somehow do manage to leave the vehicle and escape into the house. And during this sort of commotion, Jason's dog runs out to protect his owner. And Susie literally just picks up the dog and launches it into the car. And the teens are swearing at the chimps. They're picking up rocks and throwing them at them. And the chimps are literally just picking up the rocks and throwing them back. And it's not until, I think, Susie, she attempts to attack the dog again. Jason picks up a hunting gun and he shoots Susie 3 times. This is a common thing with chimps that do escape. It's a well-known law or a well-known sort of thing that's in place with zoos that if a chimpanzee escapes, you shoot it on sight because they are so unpredictable. And this weird as he shoots the chimp, like Connie turns up, she's begging him not to shoot. She's got the tranquilizer gun, and previous to this, like it had taken a few attempts previous to this to actually tranquilize Susie. And he just doesn't listen. He opens fire. He shoots Susie 3 times. And I'm not justifying his actions. Like, Susie should never have died. She was a victim in all of this. But this is what happens. He shoots her to protect his property, but initially he doesn't actually end up killing Susie. She has to be put down by a vet later on. Now, a little while later, Connie is obviously, understandably, she's distressed, she's upset. She wants Jason charged with murder. And the argument that she tries to use is that because Susie was 98% human, Jason should be charged with 98% of her murder. It doesn't end up that way. Like, it looks like that way to begin with, but it doesn't. He ends up getting charged with destruction of Connie's property because that's what Susie was seen as. She was Connie's property. And the judge even speaking to Jason, the sentencing. So this all went to court and Jason was actually sentenced to serve some time in prison. He was still 17, 18 at this time. And he's given a month sentence. He could have been facing up to 5 years, but he only ended up serving a month. But the judge that sentenced him said that, young man, you have the potential of being a serial killer. And because of obviously the court dates and because of the month in prison, he ends up missing a lot out. So he misses the birth of his first son, Jason Jr. He ends up missing his graduation, his girlfriend's graduation, promotions at work, blah, blah, blah. And it's taken him almost 20 years to clear his name. So, not long after The Lion King, what was it? The Joe Exotic documentary, that was quite a few years ago. There was one quite recently about chimpanzees. And Jason was finally able to clear his name after all the evidence through this documentary. And can you imagine that just consuming like 20 years of your life because you were, you know, protecting what was yours? And like I said, I don't agree with his actions. I think there was other ways around it. You know, shooting an animal should never be the answer. But at the same time, I don't agree with Connie trying to send him down for murder, because what if, by her standards, and I've read this comment online, so these aren't my words, but I just thought it was summed it up brilliantly. Someone put on there, so if Connie thinks this is 98% murder, then what she did was 98% human trafficking. Couldn't agree more. Susie and all the other chimps, they are complete victims of Connie Casey's greed, because there is no reason for anyone to own a wild animal. Now, Jason was aware of how dangerous the chimps could be, Unlike other people in the neighbourhood, he was fully aware. So 6 years prior to what happened to him, back in 1994, there was another escape from Connie's property. And this time the chimps went to a trailer park. They managed to gain access to a trailer and they wreak havoc. And the family that lived in the trailer, they had some of their extended family over. So there was quite a few adults and 3 young children. And one of the chimpanzees, he grabs a 2-year-old girl by her hair and he's swinging her around like a rag doll. And again, the family dog goes to protect the child. The chimp picks it up, launches it at the side of the caravan. Luckily, the little girl wasn't too badly injured. It could have been so much worse. Obviously, 2-year-old child. Thankfully, she wasn't too badly injured. So I think she just walked away with like some bruises and cuts. But it could have been a lot worse for her. Thankfully, people turn up and are able to tranquilise the chimps and they get taken back to Connie's prison. So like I said, Connie was operating with Chimp Party, a couple of her chimps. So after her and Mike divorced and he took a handful of the chimps, she stays on at her prison and keeps the others. And he ends up putting some of his chimps in the film Speed Racer from 2008. And there was an incident on set where one of the chimps bit one of the child actors and Mike severely beat the chimp. And this is why the film Speed Racer, so at the end, if you watch the credits of a film, it will say no animals are harmed during the making of this film. Speed Racer lost that certificate from Peter because of what Mike did to the chimp. So like I said, that is just obviously Susie's background, and with obviously giving birth to Travis, he's taken away after 3 days. And so Sandra and Jerome, they bring Travis home and they lived in Stamford in Connecticut. And shortly after his birth in October 95, they raise him basically as a second child. Rather than a chimpanzee, they raise him as a child. They buy him his own wardrobe. They literally spoil him, and they end up, overfeeding him with ice cream, sweets, fish and chips, and stuff like that. And this results in, as Travis grows older, he becomes very, very obese. You can see in these pictures. Compared to a chimpanzee in the wild, Travis ended up weighing over 200 pounds. They take him to work, they take him on drives, he becomes, like I said, a little mini local celebrity. He ends up appearing in adverts himself. He appeared on the Maury Povich show and the People show. And people who knew them would comment that Travis would listen better than their own children. Travis, he learned how to get himself dressed, he could open doors with keys, he could brush his teeth, he was able to water plants, he could feed the horses on Sandra's property. He learned to eat at the dinner. He even learned the schedule of the ice cream truck, so he would listen out for the familiar ringtone. And on several occasions, he even learned how to drive the ride-on lawnmower and a car. So like I said, because of his diet of human food, Travis grew to weigh over 200 pounds. And this is obviously classed as morbidly obese by chimpanzee standards. Now, in October 2003, Sandra was in her pickup truck with Jerome and Travis in the back seat. And there was a small, minor incident that happened, and thankfully no one was hurt. But they end up pulling up towards a little bit of traffic. They stop, and a pedestrian in the next car chucks an empty plastic bottle out of their window, and it goes through the truck. And the window next to Travis happened to be open, and the bottle hits Travis in the head. Travis, obviously, understandably, he freaks out, and he unbuckles his seatbelt. He gets out of the car. He chases the pedestrian. Thankfully, doesn't manage to catch the man. And police eventually were called because obviously traffic come at a standstill. Sandra and Jerome, they're trying their hardest to get him back into the car, and he was running rings around them, and he was getting the car through one door, but literally as soon as they shut that door, he opens it again and does another runner. And this went on for about 2 hours. Traffic became at an absolute standstill. And eventually Travis gets so tired that he just climbs back into the truck, does his seatbelt up, and is ready to go. After this incident, there was a change in the law that prohibited the possession or buying of a primate over £50. But the law, this new law, it didn't apply to Sandra and Jerome, because obviously they had owned Travis for 8 years at this point. Now, in September of 2000, Sandra and Jerome face real heartbreak when their daughter, she is killed in a motoring accident. And she's flown through the windscreen of her car and obviously dies on scene. Sandra absolutely heartbroken. She depends on Travis. She shuts herself off from everyone. And only 4 years after that, 3 or 4 years after that, Jerome is diagnosed with an aggressive form of stomach cancer. On his deathbed in late 2004, he tells Sandra to give Travis over to a sanctuary. He's worried that Sandra wouldn't be able to cope with Travis on her own because he's so big, because he was so strong. Sandra, she doesn't listen to him. And so obviously Jerome ends up dying, and Travis went through what we would see as a grief sort of procedure. He would pick up photo frames of Jerome and press his lips to the glass. And Sandra, obviously, again, she goes into a deep depression. She becomes utterly reliant on Travis to the point that they sleep in the same bed. They even take baths together. And there was slight rumours of a sexual relationship with Travis, but I don't know. I think Sandra, if I'm honest, for all her faults, she did love Travis. And, you know, but she abused him as well, because no chimpanzee should have, no animal really should go through that. You know, you think you're being kind to your animal and overfeeding them because they're showing signs that they're hungry, but then they get really fat, and obviously that is abuse. So, now we get to the fatal incident. So, February 2009, Sandra and her best friend and colleague, Charla Nash, they go away to a casino for the weekend. And they end up returning, so she returns on February the 16th. And at this point, Charla and Sandra had known each other for over 30 years. They used to ride horses with Loretta Lynn. If you don't know who Loretta Lynn is, she's a country and western singer, very, very big in America. And so, like I said, yeah, they've known each other for 30 years. Charla, she had met Travis on several occasions, twice when he was a baby, posing the pictures here, and she met him a few times as he'd grown up over the years. And she comes home. Sandra comes home and she finds Travis in an agitated state. It's not said who's been looking after Travis since she's been away for the weekend. But she comes home to find him in a real agitated state. And she's trying everything to try and calm him down, and nothing's working. And the one thing that Travis really wants is to go for a drive. And he's picking up her car keys and he's jumping in the car, but when he realises Sandra isn't there, he's jumping back in the house. And Sandra, for all her wisdom, she decides to make him a cup of tea, but drops a couple of Xanax in the tea. Now, Xanax is a powerful sedative, but on the flip side, it can cause anger issues and rage within people who do take it. And this, unfortunately, is what happens with Travis. He's getting more and more and more agitated as the day goes on. And eventually she ends up calling Charla. She just says, something's going on with Travis, I need your help. So Charla, she jumps in her car, she drives down there. And as she exits the vehicle, she notices a Tickle Me Elmo doll on the ground. And she does what we all do with, I mean, some of you might be parents, you've probably done this with your children. You pick something up and like a toy and you hold it in front of your face like that, and a peekaboo sort of thing. And this is what she does. So she picks up the toy, puts it in front of her face. Travis sees red. And I mean, not literally, as you figure, it's obviously Elmo is red, but he sees red and he flies into a rage and he lunges at Charla. And he picks her up, throws her against the car, and he really starts biting, kicking, scratching, stamping. The way chimpanzees fight, particularly male chimpanzees, as they grow older, they become very, very rageful, full of anger, and become very, very unpredictable. And it's a reason that why chimpanzees can only be in films from when they're babies and really young. As they get older, because of their unpredictable nature, they cannot work in these environments anymore. If you think about Michael Jackson's chimpanzee Bubbles, who I believe is still alive today, but he's now in a sanctuary because Michael couldn't handle him. And this is what happens. They just become really unpredictable. And male chimpanzees in particular, they fight similar to how some humans fight. I wouldn't really call it fighting. You guys might be aware of the story of Jordan McSweeney. Ex-girlfriends of his said that his most common tactic was to push their victim onto the ground and stamp on them, and that way you cannot get up and defend yourself. And this is what chimpanzees do to their victims. And there was a recorded incident back in the late 90s, I believe it was, where a large group of male chimpanzees, they pick a fight with a rival gang, and they single out one chimpanzee from that gang and they stamp on this poor thing to death. And another thing they do is they will rip off the genitals of their enemy or whatever they're attacking. And they sort of, a group of them are stamping on him, holding back, the other group start. And this is what happens to Charla. She gets bitten, she's stamped on, her face is completely destroyed. He breaks almost every single bone in her face. And particularly this bone here, I forgot what it's called, so I literally had it in my head, it's called this bone here, that's holding the upper jaw to your face, completely smashed in. She's got her eyelids bitten off, her fingers, so she lost 9 fingers in total. And there's just no signs of stopping him. So Sandra, she rushes out, she picks up a snow shovel, she whacks it across the back of Travis's head. Nothing. She runs back in the house, she picks up a large butcher's knife, she starts stabbing him in the back. And this is when he does finally stop for a moment. So he sort of turns around and he looks at Sandra and looks her in the eye and then continues to attack Charla. This is when she finally makes the call. So she runs to a car and she manages to jump into it and lock the car. And she makes that 911 call that you listen to at the start of this video. And the police at first, they think it's a hoax, they think it's a joke, up until the point that they can hear Travis in the background. And they finally get dispatched. The police turn up. Travis notices them. He notices the newcomers. He runs up to the car, and in his fury, he knocks off one of the wing mirrors. He goes round to the passenger side and he tries to open the door. The police officer had locked the door, but the driver's side was unlocked. So he quickly opens the door, and responding officer in the car was Frank Chiafari, and Frank said that Travis just sort of looked him in the eyes and then started to bare his teeth, and I noticed that obviously his teeth were just completely covered in blood. So Frank pulls out his gun and he shoots Travis 4 times. Travis, he sort of staggers back and he goes back into the house. Police officers, they exit the vehicle. They start surveying the ground. They notice bits of scalp everywhere, Charla's fingers. They see Charla laying on the ground, and initially, because she was so badly damaged, the amount of blood loss, they initially believe that she's dead. So they sort of want to make sure that the coast is safe. They want to make sure that obviously Travis is dead before they begin to start investigating. So they go through the house, they follow the blood splatter, and they find Travis, and he has collapsed outside of his cage and died in his bedroom. So they then go back outside to start investigating, and this is when they notice that Charla is still alive. She's, like I said, had her hands completely bitten off and destroyed. She's got one thumb hanging on, and she manages to raise her arms, and they're like, oh my god, she's alive. And eventually Charla is rushed to hospital. She ends up going into theatre for 7 hours. They noticed, like I said, that she had lost her eyelids, she lost her nose, her lips, her face, her bone structure, and 9 fingers. They removed Travis's hair and his teeth, from her wounds and her bones, and they were able to successfully reattach her jaw. In April 2009, sadly, Charla's eyeballs, they are removed, and this is because she ends up contracting a disease from Travis, and it was slowly destroying and eating away at her eyes, so the doctors had no choice. But they did tell her that she would make a successful candidate for a revolutionary face and hand transplant. So Charla's family, they set up a GoFundMe, or whatever it was back in 2009, whatever it was called, like a trust fund thing. And they set this up to pay for Charla's medical bills, but also for Charla's daughter, who Brianna, I think her name was, who was still at university at this time. And this was also used to help the medical staff to be giving counselling, because of what they were seeing, what Charla had been through, had really affected them. And in November 2009, on her 56th birthday, Charla sits down for an interview with Oprah Winfrey. Now I'm going to play that clip for you. So I'm going to pause the video in a moment. I'm going to play that clip for you. In my honest opinion, so Oprah opens up. She starts talking about. She's asking Charla what she remembers, and Charla says she doesn't have any recollections of that day. So she's like, "Oh, so you don't remember this? You don't remember that? Don't remember this?" You know, it's almost as if, okay, well, let's take you down memory lane. I found it a little bit insensitive, if I'm honest, because obviously Charla's brain had sort of cancelled that out as a way of her to try and repair after what had happened to her. But as years have gone on, obviously Charla has spoken about it, obviously from, probably heard things obviously from the doctors, from the police, what's gone on, so she's able to form her own memories of it, or memories started to come back of the attack. So I'm just going to pause here for a moment and then pop in the Oprah Winfrey video. It was under for the face and hand transplant in May 2011, and initially all successful, everything's working absolutely fine. But sadly, Charla, she contacts pneumonia not long after, and this results in poor blood circulation in her new hands. And the doctors, sadly, they have to remove the hands, and the only thing they can salvage is her original thumb, which I don't know why. I don't know the reason why. I couldn't find a reason why, but the thumb is sewn on sideways rather than it sort of normal position. Now, after the attack, so we're just going back to 2009, Travis, his body was taken away to be cremated, and by standard procedure, they removed his head, and that was for him to be tested for rabies. And when Sandra comes to visit his body, she was absolutely shocked and appalled to find that his head had been removed. She ends up having Travis cremated. He tested negative for the rabies, but they found evidence of the Xanax in his system, but also he was taking medication for Lyme's disease. I spoke about Lyme's disease a little while ago on, I think it was my last video. If you're not sure, it's contracted through ticks. Shortly after the attack on Charla, people started coming forward with their own stories. Two people in particular said that Travis had also bitten them back in the 90s. Now, the 1996 one, it's been proven that it did happen, but there's a strong belief that the 1998 attack didn't happen, that the person saying that is making it up for clout. So a woman come forward that in 1996 she had been bitten by Travis as she visited Sandra, and Travis attempted to pull her into a car, and because she was reluctant, Travis bit her on the hand. And a man in 1998 said that Travis had bit his thumb after Travis had dropped his favourite toy, and the man picked up the toy to give to him. Stanford police has said that they had no evidence to back up the 1998 claim. Now, Sandra said to have been absolutely deeply traumatised after what happened with Travis. She just wasn't the same person afterwards, but this did not stop her from purchasing another chimpanzee. Now, initially she has a choice of two. So she goes to the sanctuary in Florida. She has a choice of either a chimpanzee called Chance and another one called Eli. Now, both Chance and Eli, they were still fairly young, and again, they had a little bit of experience in showbiz. Chance, he was the chimpanzee who appeared with Leonardo DiCaprio in the Wolf of Wall Street film. There's a little scene where Leonardo is walking through a bank, and he's holding the chimp in his arm, and obviously the chimp is also just wearing sort of business attire. And then Eli, he went to appear in the One Direction music video for Still My Girl, which was set in a desert somewhere, and there's a shot of him with Louis Tomlinson, which I'm posting here. She chooses Chance, but because of what's happened with Charla, there was more laws put in place, and then obviously the existing one about owning a chimpanzee over £50, she wasn't able to bring him home, so she had to drive from Connecticut to Florida. I need to say France there, sorry. She had to drive from Connecticut to Florida to visit him, up until May the 24th, 2010. And Sandra, she begins experiencing strong chest pains. As she goes into surgery for this, they believe that she's having a heart attack, she needs surgery. As they go into perform the surgery, her lungs start filling up with blood. She's suffered a heart attack. They called it an aortic aneurysm. She was 72 years old at the time. Now, a month after the attack in 2009, so March of 2009, Charla's attorney filed a $50 million lawsuit on Sandra, and the judge ended up having to freeze Sandra's assets. Now, the defence, they claimed that Travis had never been violent prior, and they tried to put all the blame on Charla. They said that Charla had actually provoked him by picking up the Elmo doll, but also because obviously she had been away with her employee, and Charla, while she'd been away, she had her hair changed, so Travis didn't recognise her. They tried to say that Travis had no teeth, which goes against, obviously, the autopsy report, goes against what they saw and had to dig out of Charla's bones. And obviously it goes against what Frank Chiafari said, you know, when Chimp opened the door and Travis bared his teeth and they were all covered in blood. So how they were thinking of getting away with that one, I don't know. But they tried to make out that he had no teeth. Again, they iterate that the 1998 incident never happened, that was all lies. Now, eventually, after 3 long years, almost 4 long years, in November 2012, Charla settles down with Sandra's estate, and she ends up receiving $4 million. In 2013, Charla attempted to sue the state of Connecticut. She claims that officials knew about Travis. They knew that he was potentially dangerous, but they didn't act on him. And it was denied due to being that there was no law in place at the time prohibiting someone from owning a chimpanzee. In July 2013, Charla's attorney began an appeal process for Charla to still argue her case, but this again was denied in April 2014. Now, to this day, Charla, she's still fighting for tougher laws. Currently in America, there are 14 states where it's completely legal to own one of these animals. Charla is still fighting, and I'm posting a little video at the end of this of Charla. That was done, I believe, 2 years ago. And currently there's been a sort of back and forth about banning and the unbanning of owning chimpanzees. So I'm going to finish here with Charla's story and where Travis had come from and everything, and going to post obviously just a little speech that Charla gave, and I'm going to be talking about another incident at the end of that. So just
I am Charla Nash. I'm here today to make sure that what happened to me never happens to anyone else ever again. In February 16, 2009, I was attacked and mauled by my boss's chimpanzee, Travis. He ripped off my face, my hands. They were able to salvage a thumb and sew it on sideways. Most of you don't know this, but I contracted a disease from Travis in my eyes, and the doctors had to remove them, and that's why I'm blind today. Travis was purchased in Missouri and brought back to Connecticut. Had this law been in effect, this would have never been as it is. I want you all to realize, too, these chimpanzees, he was saying their strength, not only their strength, but they have two hands.
So what I said earlier, this wasn't, what happened to Charla wasn't an isolated incident. There have been numerous attacks on people from chimpanzees. Only 4 years prior to Charla's attack in 2005, there was another incident featuring NASCAR driver St. John Davis and his wife LaDonna. So their story begins back in the 1960s. So LaDonna and St. John, they were a couple. Like I said, he was a really successful NASCAR driver. They end up not being able to conceive children of their own. So LaDonna, she is diagnosed with uterine cancer, and she ends up having to have a hysterectomy. And instead of going around the route that any sane person, in my opinion, would take, which would be to foster and adopt a child, they instead decide to buy a chimpanzee. So they come across Mo, a baby chimp. And Mo originated from Tanzania. He was born in Tanzania, and he was born in March of 1967. And he ends up, just the day after he's born, his mother is shot by poachers, and this is how he ends up coming to the US, and he's bought by St. John and LaDonna. He ends up being raised as their son, and he even acts as best man at their wedding. In 1977, when he was 10, Mo ended up biting a woman who was visiting the house. He injured her finger, but this case was dismissed. Now, in the 1990s, so obviously Mo is in his late 20s, coming up to his 30s, he's housed in a 10-foot by 12-foot enclosure on St. John and LaDonna's property. Can you imagine that? An animal that's used to thousands of miles of untouched jungle in Tanzania and other countries in Africa to be put into a perspex box or a cage that's 10 foot by 12 feet. Can you imagine living like that? I couldn't. But this is what they do to him. And on one occasion he escaped, and the Davises said that he was spooked by an electrical fault. He dented the car, and when the police are called, he bites the officer's hand, and the officer ended up having to have corrective surgery on his hand. In September 1999, another visitor comes to the house, and she is also bitten. Now, the Davises claim that they warned her not to approach Mo, but she does, and she extends out her hand, and like myself, she had red fingernails. And the Davises said that Mo's favourite sweet was red licorice. and he must have mistaken her now for red licorice, so he's bit her, caused significant damage. After this incident, Mo is taken away from the Davises and he's put into a sanctuary. And following on from this, the Davises spend a very, very long time trying to fight and sue the state they lived in to get Mo brought back to them, but thankfully never happens. Mo lives out the rest of his life in various different sanctuaries. So they make the decision to move to California to be closer to him. They visit Mo regularly, and he's then moved to a second sanctuary in 2003. He shared space with 4 other chimpanzees. There was 2 males called Buddy and Ollie, and then 2 females called Susie and Bones. On March the 3rd, 2005, so this was Mo's 39th birthday, the Davises visited to celebrate his birthday, and they brought things like chocolate milk, they brought a big massive cake, and LaDonna said as soon as they exited their vehicle, Mo began to clap really excitedly, and he's actually let out of the cage to sit with them. Now, LaDonna said that as she was cutting into the cake for a second slice, she literally just looked up and noticed one of the other chimpanzees had gotten loose. So whoever let Mo out of his enclosure, they didn't close the door properly. And LaDonna looks up and she notices a second chimp running towards her. And the chimp literally just jumps up and he bites and chews off one of her thumbs. St. John sort of lunges up, he grabs his wife and pushes her under the table, and this was in an order to try and protect her, and the chimp just basically turns on him. The second chimp, so these are the 2 males, Buddy and Ollie. The second chimp, he starts to attack St. John, with one of them attacking St. John's face, the other one starts chewing on his left foot. The 2 females, they also got loose, Susie and Bones, but they literally just legged it into the trees. It took about 5 hours reportedly for them to be found and tranquilizer brought back. So like I said, St. John, he pushes LaDonna under the table to protect her, and Buddy and Ollie push him down. They go into a frenzy. Eventually, you know, like I said, same with Charla, they are stamping on St. John, they are chewing him to pieces, completely rip off his face. You can see in the pictures that I'm posting up, they completely tear his nose off, they tear off his buttocks, and even his genitals, they completely rip off his genitals. Eventually, the sanctuary owner's son-in-law, a man called Mike Carruthers, he turns up and he picks up a gun. He shoots Ollie in the face and kills him instantly. Buddy manages to run for a little bit, but he's ended up being shot dead by Mike as well. And like Charla, St. John, he survives this attack. He's rushed to hospital, he has to have corrective surgery, but there was not much they could do about his nose. If you, like I said, if you look at a picture of him, and I'm not sure why they didn't go around the surgery of the face transplant route like they did with Charla, but it's not done for St. John. Even after this attack, after what has happened, the couple put in another bid for them to successfully have Mo return to their home. And in the end, a settlement was agreed that they, to St. John and LaDonna, they would be given $300 a year by a month, by the state. And this was to cover travel costs and for Mo's housing. To cover the couple's travel costs to see Mo and for Mo's housing, sorry. And in 2008, Mo was living at a place called Jungle Exotics in San Bernardino. And it was while he was here that Mo just completely vanishes and disappears without a trace. Now, it's believed that he had escaped. He had gone into the forest that was surrounding the park. Searches were carried out, and St. John, he paid for a helicopter to circle over. To this day, there has never been any sightings of Mo. He just completely vanished into thin air. Sadly for St. John, he suffered a stroke in 2017 and he passed away in July of 2018. And obviously that must have hit the Donna hard. You know, she spent almost, 50 years with him? At this point, she'd been married for 50 years with him. And so obviously she would have been absolutely devastated, and she becomes the victim of fraud. And what happens to her is truly heartbreaking. I don't know the outcome of this. I only know the build up to it. But she becomes the victim of elder abuse and ends up being coerced into signing everything over to a man called Min Moore. And he coerced her into signing over a living will, which he gives him complete access to everything that she owns. And eventually he is forced out of the house. And forgive me for saying this word, guys, it's not me. These are the people that come up with the name. So the house gets taken over by a motorcycle gang called the Mongols Motorbike Club. So they force Minmore out and they take over the house. And poor LaDonna, she is buried in the ground up to her neck. So when police turn up, they notice a strong, repugnant, strong smell in the house. They find LaDonna, and I don't know, I can't tell you if she died at that point or if she was still alive. Like I said, I don't know what the outcome of it was. I know that a lawsuit settlement was agreed to protect what was left of LaDonna's estate and the very little money that she had. But whether or not she lived that experience, I cannot tell you. I can't find any proof online. But I'm hoping that she did. I'm hoping that she was able to recover from that. But that bit I cannot tell you guys. So that brings us to the end of today's story, or stories. Really appreciate you guys tuning in. Thank you so much for listening. Obviously, this is one that you probably may have heard of, may be familiar with. You might not remember the names, but it might be stories that you are familiar with. I clearly remember the Child and Ash one vividly, hearing about it. I was 17 at the time. I was still at home with my parents, and I remember discussing this the next day at college after hearing it. The St. John Davis one I wasn't aware of until the point that I started researching this case, but I still wanted to put it in there because although what happened to St. John was awful, I kind of hold him in regard of Connie Casey, really. There's no rhyme reason for anyone to own a chimpanzee, a lion, things like that. Other than for status. I think that's just what it is just people want a bit of status. But there's just no reason for anyone to own those animals. And it's kind of where my sympathy, if I'm honest, ends with St. John. He didn't deserve what happened to him. No one does. But at the end of the day, he would never have been in that position if he hadn't wanted that status symbol of, oh look, I've got a chimpanzee. Charla, on the other hand, obviously she has 100% of my sympathy because she didn't own Travis. She didn't deserve what happened to her. I really hope that Charla is living out her best life in every way that she can. I know obviously she's going to have certain limitations, but I hope that she's living out the best life that she deserves. On the same breath, obviously, I do hope that LaDonna, she survived her ordeal, like I said, but for that I cannot prove. So, thank you so much for watching, guys. Really, really hope that in some way this has been informative to you. If you are familiar with this case and you feel I've left anything out, please comment down below. If you have never had this case, then just put your thoughts and feelings down below and I'll always read them, always get back to you guys. So, stay safe. August coming up, next month will be the 2-year anniversary of the channel. I've got a really big story. So, keep tuned for that. Hit your subscription bell and I'll see you really, really soon. Take care, guys.